it.
Welcome to the channel, people. We're going to start off with these two items from Kirkland's right here. And hopefully I can make them for just $1 using these wood planks from Dollar Tree. But we're going to use 4 of them because we're going to make like a faux canvas type of thing by attaching 2 of them together. And I'm going to use a heaping amount of wood glue and then just put like a little bit of hot glue in the center to get them to quickly hold down. If you want to come back and hit this with some spackling to close up that little tiny gap around the edge, you go right ahead. I did clamp these down and let them sit overnight, so don't let the video fool you. They sat overnight and dried. So once they were dry, I just took a little bit of Waverly's white chalk paint and painted them. I wanted to not have to do several coats, and I knew this was going to get that job done for me with just one. Once they were all dry after just a few hours, I then took some of the colors I already had mixed and then added some darker colors in, and we're going to need to create our own little blend of like a yellowish, orangish thing going on here. I started this out by marking down little, spots where I wanted the paint to end on the colors, and then I erased them so they were fairly light so it didn't show through the paint. To get this, because it is actual in real life, because if you're not familiar with my browsing videos, I actually picked these up in my browsing videos and held them and seen them firsthand in person. They're beautiful. I actually had people comment on, me making them. So here we're duping these. Anyhow, to get this raised textured look, instead of using spackling, because you can do that, you can actually create that, I am taking the different colors together and mixing them on the paintbrush, so that way it still gives you that appearance. So see how I'm taking the dark and the light and then I'm just kind of smooshing it back and forth. What it's doing is it's actually mixing that on the paintbrush, so when I'm applying it, I am actually getting that raised textured look in my paint. So you can also go back in this with more of one color. You'll see me do that in the yellow as well. And this just gives it more definition. It gives it more of a textured feel instead of having to use your texture items like baking soda or spackling or whatever makes you fuzzy inside to create your texture. We're just using the paints in this one, and since it was very tedious, I didn't go through every single thing. I didn't want to bore you guys with just like, oh, she's sitting here. So I did speed a little bit of this up, but just giving you the idea and mark the other canvas. And this is where I'm going to take a little bit of see the light and I'm just kind of tapping it. And I did the same with the green. See how it has that where the tapping just is giving it that extra and there's nothing in it. It's just regular paint. This is where I messed up at. 1, I love this oil-based Sharpie. These are fabulous. 2, I should have bought a skinnier one. I love how these turned out at the end of the day, so let me just get that out there. But if I wanted it to look, because this is the only one I try to do exactly. The other 2 are more of an inspiration. So if I wanted it exactly, I should have used a thinner tip on the Sharpie. For this part, I literally just eyeballed this and I traced it in my mind to the paper. There are ways you could print this out from your printer, the picture, and then trace over it with a piece of carbon paper. I forget. Somebody in the comments write that below to help other people what that paper is called if you're not good at eyeballing stuff like this. And mine's not perfect. It's pretty close, but it's not perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect when you're doing stuff like this. It's art that you're keeping in your home. The idea is there. Just take it and remix it to what works for you. I really love this marker, by the way. Did I mention that? Really love it. It is beautiful, and the ink turned out perfectly. So I just need to get a skinnier one if I'm gonna do more projects like this. The leaves were by far the hardest part, especially since the tip was really thick, but I still feel like I love how these turned out anyhow. Let me know what you think. Their set was $28 and my set cost me $1. This next one is more of an inspiration than an exact, but just to give you an idea on the price. And if, again, you've been following me in my browsing videos, you knew this was coming. So this basket I picked up from Target, Five and Below spot. Don't get me started. Some of you may know it as dollar spot, but we're not going there today. It was $3. And this home metal word was $1 from the Dollar Tree. Now, I am doing this very simple. My front door is white. This is going on my door. So I wanted to keep this rustic-ish, and just taking some Waverly wax and brushing it all over it to give it a little bit of a dry brush. Then I'm taking some white nautical rope and I'm just nailing this Bama down onto it. If you're not familiar with me, I have made comments before about using hot glue for your front door. When the sun hits it, it will melt right off your door. So it's a good idea to nail it on down so it's not going anywhere. If you have some E6000 or Gorilla Glue gel, slap it on there too, people. Like, any of that stuff is great, but me and my mother have been the victim of hot glue front door things. Walking outside to your car one day and like, man, craps on the floor. This is magnetic. Look at this. How awesome is that? So I am just gluing down the magnet onto this basket. I want to be able to switch the basket out. If you're familiar with me, I've been talking about how much I love these baskets that I see like all over the place. And when I went to Kirklands, that was the last straw. I was like, I'm making one. That's it. So I just took some florals and I'm using, and this is not something I usually show in my videos, but the reason I'm showing, in case you don't know, is I'm using these little trash ties and twisting them on here, so this way I can twist them on my basket and just switch that out and the home sign all year long and keep the basket on the door. Again, not an exact, an inspiration, but this is $89.99 and this is not fitting in my workspace. It did have these clamps on the back, and it was $7.99. My mother actually paid for this. This is for her front door. In case you don't know, almost anything you see that I do blue is Mama's. We're going to need to cut this down. Now, you could also do this with a piece of wood that you buy at Home Depot and cut it down. I'm using a 45-degree angle to cut the peak of this, our little house. Once I had this all done, I then took a piece of, scrap trim, and it's actual wood, it's a nice little piece of wood, and I cut them on 45s so they met like this, and that's going to be our peak for our little house. Now the board itself is MDF, so it's not solid wood, but for $7.99 we're going to slap these colors on here. Now the blue my mom likes is a very French country type blue, and usually I gotta finagle and mix some chalk paint with some acrylic paints, put a little bit of burnt umber in there, some water to get this color. That's right, I do all this for my mama. Do this part whatever color you want, honestly. This is our undercolor. This is the color that our words are going to be. Paint your board, use whatever paintbrush you want. Just paint the whole thing where you plan on painting your letters. And of course, be mindful, because not all paintbrushes are created equally. And sometimes, Look at it. Slowly creeping out of there. Gotta get it. That is the crappy thing about new brushes. They shed so bad. Anyhow, I'm painting the little peak, our little trim pieces, the same color, and that because we want it to stand out, and I spared you all most of this. You're welcome. For those of you who know how much I just love my Cricut. And I cut out and printed out welcome, down thing. To attach these, starting out, we're going to use some Gorilla Glue gel so we can make sure that when this is hanging on her front door, it's going to last. The sun is not going to have it melting off her door. So we're going to just apply these on here and, of course, do the best job that you can. Apparently I had them backwards and upside down and some more stuff. And, of course, then I harm myself. Ah! Ooh, ow, it burnt. Ow, ow, ow. Of all the places I could have put my finger, I placed it the exact spot where the hot glue was just dangling on the back. And then, of course, I didn't check the size of the nails I had in my nail gun before I just started nailing away. You gotta be kidding me. So then I had to figure out how I'm going to deal with this. Do I want to hammer these back out? Do I want to cut new trim? I didn't want to do none of it, people. I didn't want to do none of it. I was so over it. So I'm like, let's cut this down. We're going to go scrounging around through our Dollar Tree stuff. I find some stringed beads in the Dollar Tree thing, and I start putting them on there and hammering the parts down over the little part that's sticking out. And what's happening? Just... Why is this just... I can't even figure it out. It's all just falling apart. Oh, Lord. Now to hide all that, I'm going to just take the same color paint, go over these beads. We're going to take this to another level and put some golden wax on it in a little bit. But I'm just thinking about it, man, people, it was so, I couldn't even believe all that stuff was happening to me. I mean, I can, but to catch it on film and relive it, I'm just like, seriously? This is removable vinyl I'm using, and I'm just applying the words welcome all down. Now, you'll notice there is not an O, because I want my mom to be able to use this all year long and change that out if she wants. I'm using Waverly white chalk paint for this project. I wanted to use my Dixie Belle, but honestly, I wasn't. My everything is a mess right now, and I can't find it. So do not do this if you do not have a steady hand. Painter's tape is our friend. Make sure you tape off any of your little sharp points. I have a pretty steady hand, so doing stuff like this, I have no problem with it. But if you do not, make sure you use painter's tape. I also, to cover up all the little extra marks and bumps and imperfections. Listen, don't tell my mom. Okay, just don't tell her. She doesn't always watch all my videos. She might never know. Okay, she's gonna think all this was purposeful. Shh. All right, taking the dark blue paint and going over the little beads, because we're gonna add some Gildan wax to it in a little bit, and it'll be beautiful. Once your paint is dried, and the reason I let the paint dry before doing this is because I was worried about smudging it extra with how big the piece is. Sometimes, most of the time, I like to pull it off while it's still a little bit wet, but I didn't do that here. I'm weeding all the whole welcome thing. Look how beautiful. I love the look of blue and white. Something about those colors together just really looks so fresh. This is probably the only part of weeding that I enjoy, is the actual peeling of the vinyl off when you reveal a paint or something, because I don't really like anything else about it at all. Anyhow, next, go through your little pieces. You do not have to do this part if you do not want to. I love taking a very pointy paintbrush and going back over any little runs or imperfections. You can leave it if you want to. Sometimes that look is exactly what you're going for, but for this, I wanted this to be as precise as I could get it. Now we're going to add our little cup hook and just take a drill bit to put a little hole in here, so this way my mom can change out the O all year long, and you know, Christmas, Easter, whatever little decorative thing she wants to put on here. Again, I know this isn't an exact dupe. It is inspired by this piece from Kirklands. My mom loves Kirklands. I love Kirklands. Such nice stuff for inspiration from this. And to keep the little cup holder in place, we're gonna just add in a little bit of Gorilla Glue gel, so this way it just is fastened in there very solid and will not melt off her front door. However, the idea is here, and if you want to take what I'm doing here and just apply it to create the dupe, you know, you add the little window at the top, the little door at the bottom, add the words home, and you got this. Okay, it's there. The idea is fire. Now I'm just taking some silver gilding wax and going over the top, and we're finished for this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, people. I hope you got some learning and some entertainment out of today's video. Let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite. You know I love to chat with you and I want to hear about it. Until next time, bye!